We're Malin and Johan, a Swedish couple that have been sailing full-time since 2016. After 3.5 years of sailing, we welcomed our daughter Vera on board. Most recently, we bought a farm in Sweden where we are going to build our dream boat ourselves from scratch. Welcome aboard and please subscribe for weekly episodes. In last week's episode, we finished placing the temporary hull frames on top of the strong back. The next step is to brace the frames so that they are standing rock solid. For the bracing, we need a bunch of smaller pieces of wood to mount in between the frames.
Yesterday I started out mounting these, the spacers or the support beams in between the temporary frames. And this really adds a lot to the stability of the whole structure and how rigid it gets. So there will be 7 of these between each temporary frame. 2 down here, 1 up in the top and 1 in between, and of course the same on the other side. I'm at frame number 11 now, so just about halfway. And it's not only for the stability of the structure that we put in this, it's also to make sure that the edge on the temporary frame where the wooden strips later on are meeting that edge, that is in the correct position. So we keep the hull form correct, so we won't have any dips or bulges in the hull. And that will save us a lot of time later on, because then we don't need to use as much fairing and there will be less sanding to get the hull really fair. And the next thing we're going to do after I'm finished mounting these are to put up some legs out here to give the structure some more strength on the sides to support the weight, not only from the hull but also from us climbing around on top of this. I will also glue some scrap pieces of wood together with the legs to really make the height adjustment permanent, to make sure that it doesn't move later on once we start putting weight on this. One challenge when putting up these spacers between the plywood here is that you can't cut all of them to the same length, because there are deviations in the thickness of the plywood. And it's not a lot, but over the whole length of the boat with 22 frames, that small deviation will add up. And that could result in that this side of the boat is getting longer than that side, and that's not very good. So I tried to check, like I've checked here 1/3 of the boat length, that we have the same measurement from here on this side like we have on that side. And of course I also checked that at every place we have exactly 700 millimeter from this surface to over here, or in this case from the back side to the back side, so it doesn't get out of control, because there is quite a lot of difference between the different plywood sheets, I have to say. I've seen thicknesses of the plywood between 17.9 millimeter all the way up to 19.5. And that doesn't sound a lot, but it is a lot when you compound it over the whole length of the boat. So that's something you have to think about. I'm working up here in the bow of the boat, and I've been having some problems with frame number 19. It was off in this direction by 5 millimeters. So that side compared to this side was 5 millimeters longer over the total length of the boat. And that doesn't sound a lot over a 50-foot boat, but the error started here. This one was exactly in the correct position, and the one before that. So something was really off with this one. So I wanted to correct that, because otherwise I had to really bend the plywood 5 millimeters to get the same spacing in between here. And I didn't want to do that. So I have fixed that now, but the problem is that these support legs, they are sitting pretty tight together. So if you move one of them, just 1 millimeter, it really moves a lot out here. But I think I got it in the correct position now, and now I only have to do the same thing with this one, and probably the next one as well. Other than that, it's been going pretty good. I have mounted almost all the spacers, or the support beams in between the temporary frames, or I have 2 rows of them now on both sides. I'm only missing the ones up here, and the next step is to do the rest. I'm missing some top pieces, and then it's time to do the pieces in between here. And I'm thinking I might do that from inside the boat, from a ladder. It's a bit easier than doing it from out here.
Is it going okay?
Yeah. This is my 3rd day painting. I'm a bit sore in my body. But now we started with the kitchen, so we just said, let's finish everything. So we're not doing any big renovations in the house now, but we're freshening it up with paint. We put in a new sink, dishwasher, bench top. So now this weekend we did the kitchen, we painted the ceilings, walls twice, did all this, and now we're gonna paint the tiles. And today I've been painting the windows and all the trimmings and doors. It's a lot, but it's gonna look so much better. It's gonna be so much more fresh and nice to live in for the next couple of years.
So I'm finished with the 2 lower rows of support beams on both sides now, and I'm very pleased on how it turned out. The whole structure is very rigid now, and it will be even more so once I have the rest of them in place that are further up. But it's pretty late now. It's a bit after 9 o'clock in the evening. I've been working kind of late, so I will call it a night now and continue tomorrow. Ta med en i taget. Nej, bara lägger ner. Så upp och ner. We're checking the hull for fairness, and this is a good way to see that the temporary frames are really in the correct position from side to side.
Ja, precis.
Vi tar den snäppar upp. Då skulle det vara eventuellt den som flyttas lite dit där.
Ja.
Ska vi markera den?
We do this on both sides. Check and if there is any frames that has a little bit of space, we mark that and then check on the other side before we... Kolla du nu då för kameran. The mold looks really fair. It looks so beautifully when we take this thing and we see the shape of the future hull. And there was only 2 frames that we need to move a few millimeters, like 2 millimeters or so.
So yesterday we had our naval architect Ulf visiting us here at the farm, and it was a day with lots of boat talk and really interesting topics. And we got to talk about the stem, that is the next piece that we're going to produce for the hull, and it's actually will be a permanent piece of the boat. And that's really the next step before we can start planking the hull. Let me show you up front here. The front or the bow or the stem, I'm not sure exactly what this piece is called. I think it's called a stem. It's a permanent piece that's going to sit up here in the front, and it will go in an arc, and I will connect it to these 2 temporary frames just to hold it in place during the planking process. And this piece will be the end piece where all the planks will connect to. And then in front of that, we're going to produce a small cone or a nose that will be the actual bow of the boat, but that's later on in the process. So Ulf is going to produce a cutting file for me, a 2D file, so I can make a template for this piece, and that's something that we're going to start producing in the coming weeks.
That's all from this little boat building family. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. See you next week.